Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. So I would say in general, I consider myself a pretty unique CPA in many respects. And I say that with pride. And I was really thrilled that through a connection with a friend, which I'm going to get into in the episode, I was able to meet this person, and she's just been such a great gift to my business and to my life since I met her just like a month and a half ago. And I've absolutely loved working with her. This is Lauren Furtado on the show today. And the conversation with Lauren is going to be super fun. I'm bringing her on as a friend, now a colleague. She's actually helping Fitnancial Solutions as a fractional CFO on my team, working alongside of me, and she's simultaneously building her own practice. And before you jump to conclusions, right, and go, hey, wait a minute, Shannon, she's working with you and building her own thing. You actually allow that? Yeah. And I encourage it because what's super important to me is that everybody has the ability, the capability to live up to their fullest potential, whether that's with me or on their own. And if they can learn a few things from me and add value to my clients in the process, why the hell not? And it actually gave me a lot of good ideas on how we can actually help each other take that stepping stone out of corporate accounting, out of that Big Four role, and help people step into going off on their own and living life on their terms, on their schedule, and doing it a little bit faster because they don't have to do it alone. And that's actually the entire sentiment of why I've enjoyed working with Lauren and why I've enjoyed having her on the team alongside her crazy expertise and great ideas. So I'm excited for you to meet Lauren. Consider this her introductory episode. You'll be hearing from her a lot more soon. She's also a podcast junkie, just like me. And I'm sure you'll be hearing more conversations between us. So let's meet Lauren. Hey, Lauren, finally got you on the show.
Yes, I'm so excited, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Me too. Everybody meet Lauren Furtado. She's just a boss. I absolutely adore her. But we have to tell you a bit more about her and her story and how we met, which is really cool. We met like a month ago, which sounds like a month or 2 months ago, which sounds insane. But Lauren, like just tell everyone how you started in accounting in particular. I know we can go all the way back, but how did you become an accountant and decide you wanted to do this?
Yeah. Well, first I want to acknowledge it may only be 2 months, but it feels like we've known each other forever. Yeah. So let's start back at college. It's so funny because I heard you on your podcast before say that you wanted to be a Spanish teacher. Well, I started college with that exact major. I wanted to be a high school Spanish teacher. I loved Spanish in high school. And I'm going to teach kids how to speak another language, right? Got into first semester of freshman year and very quickly realized that was not the right path for me. So had a conversation about, all right, Lauren, tell me, what other subjects did you like in high school? So, well, math, right? I love figuring out the answers to the problems.
Same.
Well, you should try accounting, right? Again, stereotype number one about accountants. You like math, you're good at accounting. But coincidentally, it just kind of clicked. It's funny sitting in a room full of business majors, marketing people, general business in an introduction to accounting class. And I always say with debits and credits, either you kind of get it or you don't, where, those other majors, I'll say, struggled a little bit with the accounting. It just kind of made sense. I loved my teacher, which was another reason why I was like, all right, well, let's try the second class and see how that one goes. So sophomore year, I ended up changing my major to accounting, going all in and saying, all right, let's do this. I was taking extra classes to make sure I could still graduate on time. And like every good little accounting major, right, I interviewed with a bunch of firms before even graduating, right? There is such a sense of pride with the accounting majors that hey, I've got my job already set up and we haven't even walked across the stage yet, where other people are really trying to find their path on what work looks like after graduation day. So I got, that offer from the Big Four. I did ask them if I could work out of a specific office. So I moved from Buffalo, New York, 400 miles into New Jersey, where I've been the last 20 years, and started my career in accounting, right? I was a financial statement auditor, and that's where it kind of kicked off.
Yeah, and so basically same on almost all of that, except I was in Boston at a different firm, but we were in rival firms. Call it like the Red Sox and the Yankees, right? We were the two, especially in
Yeah.
financial services. That's where I started, and you were in more of like the what we would call commercial businesses in our world, but like it was more the retail, pharma, right? Those types of
Yeah,
industries.
industrial products, consumer products, stuff that was made, I'll say tangible goods.
Yeah.
Experienced in a couple other things as well, tech and higher ed and some hospital clients as well.
Very
So,
cool.
yeah.
So, all right. So you and I both stayed at the Big Four for a long time. I consider yours is a longer time, but mine was a long time. I made it to manager 3, which I think is like, the was what do I call it? Like young adult, and it's kind of the okay. You haven't hit senior manager yet, but like you got to feel for what it's going to be like. You kind of hit your. That's where I think the plateau, like the diminishing returns, almost start in the career, where you're
Yeah.
like, all right, you hit manager, fantastic. The longer you stay, though, this is just my opinion. Like no one come at me, but like the longer you stay at that point, I feel like you don't learn as much every single day as you did when you were younger in your career.
Yeah, I'll say it's less about technical accounting stuff, right?
Right.
'Cause you
Managing, overseeing, project management, you're using different skills.
Exactly. It's more the people stuff. It's more the operational type things that happen within the firm, communications with engagement teams, with clients, things like that. I think that start to really get developed as you get more senior. It's interesting you said staying till manager. I think about the messaging, and from a retention standpoint, the big four are pretty clear on, hey, staying till manager at least is going to give you the biggest salary jump when you leave, right?
Yes.
So at a minimum in your mind, you are, okay, I have to get my CPA license, I have to make manager, like you are on this trajectory. And the firms are built on a bit of an up or out model, right? There's an expectation and a timeline. It's not, I'm gonna really like wait to get promoted. I'm not sure when that is. It's no, all right, 2 years at senior, 3 years at senior,
It's
whatever
like
that
school.
is.
It's like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Like you are expected, like you spend a certain number of years, and if you are held back, it's like, whoa, what's wrong with her,
There's a
right?
problem. Yep, absolutely. And you're hungry to make the next level. And because there is such a natural progression, they keep you focused on, okay, well, just another year, just another busy season, right? Like to get to that next.
There's a carrot every year. There's another carrot. Like, but if you say another one, you get this. And if you say
Yep.
another one, you get this, right? Like hold out until bonuses come out at least, or at least hold out until this happens. There's always a carrot dangling.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just reflecting back on college, like it's considered prestigious to go work for the big four, right? Like you were proud to say that, you were honored to have that path. And that was, and this is 20 years ago, but that was just the natural progression of you're doing accounting and like that's where you're going to end up, right? Like
Yeah,
not
that's what you want.
the idea that there's something else that may exist in terms of that path.
Yeah, it's the brick paved carved road for you that you could just walk on. And it's like a lot of people are working on like unpaved roads. They're going, I don't know what direction I'm going to go in because it's open ended. This is like it's packaged for you. It's like here's your accounting career, the guidebook. And luckily, my dad read this to me like a bedtime story when I was in high school. He was just like, this is what you're going to do. Okay. You're going to take these classes. Then you're going to go sit for the exam. Then you're going to go past this. Then you're going to make senior. Then you're going to make manager. And like, I literally knew that by age X, I was going to make manager. Like, know that the expectation is by age X, you're going to make manager, and then this will happen, and then this will happen. Like, you can really plan your career, which is again a blessing and a curse, because then once you leave, what a rude awakening at the paint by numbers is gone, and now you have a blank piece of paper.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one, being able to anticipate what that trajectory looks like gives you some comfort. It gives you, hey, some stability and understanding that I have job security, right? Like if I work hard, I continue to do the things I'm asked to do. Like this is what it looks like, not this uncertainty and the unknown. But I think it also limits you in terms of what the possibilities are.
I think it's kind of like operating with the, what do you call them, like swimmies. Like you don't know how to swim because you've had these swimmies on the whole time that just guide you and you know what to do. It's like bumper lanes your whole career going, just stay in the lines and you'll be
Yep.
fine. And here are where the lines are drawn. And, you know, it's not really that subjective. I feel like everybody got the same raises. Everybody was kind of put through a machine. And yes, it's great when you're like, I like certainty and I like structure and I like these things. I mean, we're accountants, but then they also make it sound like you're jumping off a cliff when you leave, and that you're diving into the deep end without the swimmies on, and
Absolutely.
that
Oh,
you're going to
where are you
regret it.
going? Yep. Yep. So many questions on where you're going, judgment on what that position is and the possibilities of what you could do in that position because oh, it's an internal audit role. Well, that sounds terrible. Like, right. Like, I just think there's a lot of judgment that goes along with what's on the
Tons.
other side. But the interesting part is if you talk to those people who are on the other side, and this has been your past, Shannon, right? It is
Hmm.
a very different picture in reality of what that can be.
Yeah, they paint it like, so there's this visual of like you're jumping off a cliff into this pool, right? And you don't know how deep it is. You jump, and it's like a hot spring that's 3 feet deep, and you're like, I was scared of this for 5 years. Like just because I didn't jump, because I was told that it was going to be X by people who had never done it.
Absolutely.
And that's the funny thing. That's business. That's corporate. It's like, oh, but you've never done it. So who are you to tell me this?
Yeah,
You're trying to keep me safe and keep me here and keep yourself comfortable by telling
absolutely.
me these stories.
Yep. And continue to get work product out of you, right?
Yeah. And so let's jump into, you've been at this company for years, decades even. And let's talk about how we met. I want you to tell the story of how we kind of met, and then like what shifted, because when we met, your attitude towards doing this like fractional CFO thing was very different than it is now, just a few weeks
Yep.
later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So maybe I'll talk about a bit about my career within the firm and kind of where I'm at now. So most of my time has been spent as an auditor, but I'll say every like 3 to 4 years, I get a bit antsy of like, I got to do something different.
Yeah.
Right. And typically what that's looked like for me has been different clients. And then it's okay, I did an internal role for a couple of years, right? Developing tools for everyone at the firm and, writing guidance for thousands of people to use and, getting different exposure and just working on something different. And I will say, becoming a parent, being in public accounting, where it is very competitive, was a very hard scenario for me. I have 2 children. And after I had my daughter, who is my second, I really was evaluating like, what do I want my career to look like? Right. And how do I want to be spending my time? And it's unfortunately a little discouraging sometimes to look at some of the female partners. And I hate to say this, but it's unfortunately true, who talk about, well, my kids were in daycare and I had a nanny. And it's, if you want to push to that next level of making partner, like what sacrifices are you making in your life? And for me, the work-life balance was so much more important than it, just spending the hours to hammer through and meet deadlines. So for me, after I had my daughter, I took a fully remote role within the firm. And I also took a flexible work arrangement. So I work till 3 every day in order to spend time with my children, right? And I think that flexibility actually that the firm gave me that taste of freedom. It was like, okay, well, if I can work without going to the office every day, right? I can manage my life and my career and still do well and exceed and get decent raises and all of that. But I think it left me wanting more, right? Because the content, right? The impact for me is a huge missing piece right now in working still with a big four firm. Candidly, we have clients that are giant corporations, right? They make billions and billions of dollars. Although I completely understand, right, the importance of auditors in the capital markets, right? We are necessary. It's hard to feel like the piece that we're doing really as an individual has an impact on like a big picture, right?
It's not as
Um,
direct.
yeah, yeah. So for me, I really have been evaluating like, all right, what's next? It's not going to be in the context of the firm anymore. I'm pretty clear on that. And if I want to go do my own thing, what does that look like? And to be totally honest, my understanding of what like starting your own practice will look like is exactly what everybody who knows nothing about accounting was. So it was, I need to figure out how to do taxes, right? Like I have not in practice been doing tax since I was an intern at the IRS, but like I got to figure this out so I can work for myself and have the independence I want and have an impact on serving people who have started their own businesses. Like I just had this craving to do it on my own, but having no clue like how I would get there. So that's where a text message to a good friend put me in connection with you, right? So the DeRoses, who have been doing so well in their business, they left, my friend Mike specifically left his 9 to 5, right, to go support his wife. And now they work in tandem in their business. And just knowing they were entrepreneurs, I was like, where do I start? Right? Like, help me. Is there a class I need to take? Like, what does this look like when I am thinking about taking this leap? Right? It is terrifying not having any clue how to even get to the edge of the cliff.
Right.
So he literally just said, can I connect you with someone? And here we are 2 months later.
I'm not sure if he's going to regret that or not. No, he wouldn't. But yeah, and number one, I'm thrilled and flattered that like, hey, you need to talk to Shannon was like what went through his head. But also, actually, the question he asked me was, hey, are you hiring? And I almost said no because I wasn't like actively, I had no like listings online. I had no like content that said like Shannon's hiring. It wasn't like doors are open, apply now, right? But I was like, you're never not hiring when someone says that because I trust Mike and I go, why? So I was like, I'm not hiring. Tell me more. Like, what do you mean?
It depends.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm all, and I kind of like revisited my answer, which was initially not really, but I revisited that and said, that's kind of a don't tell me more answer. So I was like, I'm just going to say, well, I'm open to any conversation around this. Like, tell me more about why you're asking me this. And he's like, I know somebody you got to talk to. So that put us in touch. Now we chatted for a little bit, but then like, this is the coolest part is I think a couple weeks or a few weeks later after we were chatting about, what your goals were and what you wanted to do, I was heading to Dallas for the CFO Accelerator. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, checking out your social media, I was like, let me listen to some of this podcast because I love podcasts. And I was like, wow, Shannon does a really great job with this. And lo and behold, a plug for the CFO Accelerator Live down in Texas. I was like, next time I talk to Shannon, I have to ask her about this. I wrote it in my notebook and like I forgot about it. And then one day, of course, we had run over on our call per usual. And I was like, wait, one quick last thing. I was like, what's with this thing in Texas? Should I go? Like, this seems really interesting to me. And you're like, absolutely. And within probably less than 24 hours, I had a plane ticket booked. I had purchased the ticket for the conference. And we were in Texas probably less than 2 weeks later, which was huge. It was huge. And I'm so glad to have connected with people who were doing what I genuinely was craving that I didn't even know existed, to be honest. And it was so refreshing to see that all of the experience that I've gained over the last 18 years in my career really translates to something that I can be passionate about, with hearing everybody's stories about what they do and, how their firms are set up. And it was just really an eye-opening experience. And I'm forever thankful for it.
Yeah. And we were also staying together too. And I remember you coming back to the room after the sessions and you were like, I can do this. It was like, of course you can. Anyone can do this if you really want to. But I think what most people in corporate, if you're working a corporate job or you're working in Big Four, you're an accountant, like you'll totally relate to this, number one. But number two is if you've worked in corporate, you think that by leaving corporate and doing your own thing, you're somehow setting a reset button and starting back at level 1 of the video game.
Yep. And that's exactly what I thought.
You're not. And that's the thing is people think they're jumping down to level 1 and they have to start over. And I go, that may be the case, but you have all the weapons, knowledge, and skill from level 12. And
Absolutely.
you're going to tear through that thing and you're going to be at level 6 in 3 weeks.
Absolutely. And it's being able to like really see that and appreciate that like it does translate and it really is going to be instrumental in this succeeding, that
Yeah.
there's a lot to offer, even without, again, my first misconception of knowing taxes, that the experience does translate quite a bit into fractional CFO work for sure.
Yeah. And I was victim of that too when I first started out. I've told the story before about how I started with like tax prep because I was like, I'll just do what people need to pay me for. Like I knew that's what people wanted and they were asking for an ordering. So I'll say I made Big Macs for Big Mac taste. I was like, I'm willing to make the cheap burger because that's what people are coming to the counter and ordering. Even though over time I developed more confidence, more skills. And I was like, actually, think about it. I don't really want to do this anymore. This isn't fun. I feel like I'm at a higher level than this and I can do more and I can add more value to these people and then charge them more accordingly. And that was the evolution of how Fitnancial really like came through over the last 4 years or so. And it's so cool to talk to you and to realize that like yeah, you have no desire nor pressure to like start at the bottom and do basic bookkeeping or basic tax prep. You were like, now I'm doing CFO. I know exactly what I need to do, like with all the confidence in the world. And I was like, oh yeah, you're going to do great things. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'll say being at that conference really solidified my decision. I didn't even know this existed. Thanks to Shannon, I know it exists. Here's what it looks like. I get the inside tips on how you've gotten from Big Macs to where you are now, right?
To the filet mignon.
And I appreciate that. And it's given me, okay, well, I want to set this up successfully so I can let go of that career that I've been comfortable in for so long and be able to successfully launch this thing off.
Yeah. What do you think? Like what shifted? Like because something happened very fast in your mind that went from like click to click, like one side to the other of like, this is comfortable. I make X amount of money, steady, solid paycheck, raising 2 kids. Like this is probably what I should be doing to stay comfortable and to stay safe. And then kind of going all in on, I mean, you literally in like 24 hours, I think, signed up for the accelerator, bought a laptop, and like you went all in. You're a lot like me, which is dangerous, which is like make a commitment. You bet your ass, like it's done next week. Like we'll be taking action rapidly.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, there's no other option. One foot in front of the other. And if I want something done, I got to take control and do it. Right. So I think the shift for me was really the fear of the unknown was so significant when it was, again, like, I have no idea what this looks like versus the reality of being able to really connect with people who are doing it and what it could look like, right? Of like, okay, this is what this is. So I got more information, right? So that fear subsided and it was an instant, I can do this. So let's go full speed, right? So no hesitation. I've got 5 minutes to spare during a break. All right, I'm doing my LLC. I'm going to open my bank account. Like I literally...
Yeah, you were doing it in the hotel.
Yeah, every minute I get. And part of that, I think, too, is like being able to multitask quite a bit between being a mom and having a career too, right? Like I take any minute I can to get something done because the laundry list, unfortunately, is never ending.
Yeah. I don't think people realize the superpowers we have in managing our time and getting shit done because like I had, Jason, I say he's quote unquote disabled. He has a lot of back pain, a lot of issues. Like I have to do a lot of things for him, with him. I don't want to leave for extended periods of time and so on. So even though I don't have kids, I have obligations and like I need to be home. I can't be away for too long. So there's like restrictions and constraints in your life, right? But when you're used to working within multiple constraints and still making it through the maze, like this is nothing.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
So now you're building your own practice. You're also working alongside me with our clients. Let's talk about what your current focus is. Talk about your business. Talk about who you're trying to serve. What's on your mind right now in terms of what direction you're heading in?
Yeah. So set up my company, Unconventional CFO Services. Yeah. So really targeting 7-figure business owners and looking again for opportunities of impact. And what that means for me really is growth minded folks, right? So I have a great perspective on, how to connect the dots between the finances and the goal setting. So for people who are really looking to do more or get more out of their business, that's the target. So again, connecting in terms of values, that's a big one for me too. Just making sure we're aligned, right? I think being an accountant and being in public for so long, quality and communication and integrity, right? Like we're bound by ethics having CPA license. So I think it's just making sure from, a company organization perspective and like really who I'm looking to work with, that alignment is pretty clearly there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that at least when I started out, one thing I was always looking for, which I think you agree with, is like the respect of that flexibility. I think when I would do my client onboardings, and I think you may have heard me say this before, to a client, but it's kind of like my whole team is women and moms.
Mm-hmm.
So like what we're working as best we can. So if like we say we'll have something done by a certain day and like one of the sons gets sick, like life happens. So we like
Yep.
to have people who are empathetic to family oriented businesses or have one themselves who's like, look, I get it. Like I'm going to be late to a call because somebody's sick. I'm going to be late to a call because school pickup took forever. Like we're on the same level. We get it. Right. And I think that it's not said enough, especially with Big Four. Like you can have that. You can have clients who get that.
Absolutely.
It's so important.
Yeah, and I think working remote the last 4 years, even in the confines of a big four firm, seeing that I can still do it, being a mom of two, having that happen, right? My daughter is sick, I have to go pick her up, and I don't have a partner to do that for me as a single parent, that the responsibility sits with me. And it is just communicating, right? It's letting someone know that that's the situation and having an alternative, right? So, okay, I have to go pick her up. Can we connect tomorrow at X time, right? Being specific on here's the impact, but this is a priority. So let's make sure that we have an alternative booked as to like either one, when something's getting done or when we can connect. So I think the communication of it is so key, because I think the boundary setting up front for me comes fairly easy, I'll say, because of what the kids' schedules are, right? So it's availability during certain blocks, and I am all in focused during that time, but respecting the boundaries of what's outside that time. And I would say from a client's perspective too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Enabling them, whether it's personal commitments or other pieces of the business they want to focus on, taking out the time and the stress relating to the finance piece is like so integral, and giving them the opportunity to, again, either spend time with the child or their husband, or, spend time on marketing because that's where they want to spend time, right? So I think
Yeah.
it's providing the service in a way that helps them alleviate some of their time commitment to create some of that balance as well.
Yeah. And the same goes, that was a big part of my why, and a big part of like, not just the why for the client so that they can do that if they're, if they have a family, but also my like employees and contractors, right? So like I work with several bookkeepers, many of which you've met, and their moms. And I'm going, I want to help provide income to you guys where you don't have to compromise that identity and you don't have to apologize for being a mom. Because, and now granted, I worked at the Big Four at the similar time as you, starting 15, 20 years ago. So lots changed. However, when we were growing up in the firm, it was definitely evident that like being a mom was your disadvantage because
Yeah.
there was a lot going on there.
Yeah, they say, right, when you're at work, you're supposed to pretend you're not a mom. And when you're being a mom, you're
Pretend you don't
supposed
have a job.
to be an employee, right? Like, not the coexistence of the two, which it honestly, it can happen. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, this identity of needing to be 100% at both, and
Yeah.
ignore the fact that the other exists is just not realistic.
Yeah. And from the perspective of someone who came up at the Big Four single, no kids, it was also like, I'm the one expected to stay late. I'm the
Yep.
one expected to do all the work because the moms had to leave to pick up their kids. Nothing
Mhm.
against that. But it was then kind of like, okay, Shannon, you have to do 150% because she's doing 80. And it's
Yep.
like, wait a minute. Now not only are you like kind of patronizing the moms, now I'm like, wait a minute, I don't get cigarette breaks because I'm not a smoker. I don't get to leave early because I'm not a mom. I was like, shoot, maybe I need to go have a kid so I can work normal hours.
No, and I totally agree, because I was in that boat for a long time.
Yeah,
I didn't have my children until I was a senior manager. So
right.
like I went through years of that, right? The phone call on a Friday, hey Lauren, can you fly out on Sunday and be in California for Monday morning? Like, can you stay in a hotel and travel? And can you take this meeting because nobody else on the team can, and stay late on, the same night you had a class at the gym scheduled, right? Like the
Yeah.
prioritization of like what's important for somebody, unfortunately, like starts to diminish when you get outside of kind of the children model, which is unfortunate. Like even as a 25-year-old, like I had things that were important to me. Maybe it
Yeah.
was,
I wanted to go to Zumba class. I wanted to go teach. Yeah.
yeah. And the fact that like that can exist again is something that like is a mindset shift when you are outside the confines of the big firm mentality.
And I'm so happy that folks like us are starting to kind of snap out of the matrix and break free from it and realize, like, hey, maybe this doesn't align with my current goals and my current values. Because I can never say I was never unhappy working at the firm. I was never unhappy working anywhere. I think that you become unhappy working somewhere when you evolve in a different trajectory than the career does. And there's just a misalignment. There's nothing wrong with the job. It's just
Yep.
that the expectations no longer fulfill you. You're like, I'm not getting the same out of this that I used to. I think I need a different movie instead of watching this one over and over again. I need something different. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with the firms. That's why like I would never tarnish the name of my old firm, because I'm like, I was grateful for every minute I spent there in my career. It's why I can do what I do now. It's why I can do all this. I, burnt myself out. Again, I didn't know any better. I wasn't really asked to burn myself out, but I did because that's how I am. But it's a huge career uplifter, but also, you just realize that you're meant for more, meant for something different.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Grateful for every experience, good or bad, right? Throughout the years, learned so much. And there are so many really intelligent and
Oh, the
thoughtful
people.
leaders within the firm. There are so many different connections. You get to coach and manage and mentor hundreds of people. You get to learn from people who have done so many different complex things. And it's really cool because the resources are definitely at your hands when you need something, right? There's
Mhm.
all kinds of specialists, and we'll say it's been an incredible experience. But you're right, right? When it's, again, a misalignment with potentially where you are, it's just time to explore other opportunities. And I think, it took me a long time to get there, but I'm finally there, right? And I think it's from a personal life perspective, just really reflecting on how I spend my time. And if it's not something that I'm feeling fulfilled in, then is it really the right fit? Why can't there be income and fulfillment that exist in the same place?
Exactly. You don't have to trade income for impact or vice versa. You can have
Nope.
both. And that's a huge mission and a huge message. As I kind of wrap things up here, Lauren, I'm curious, what is one of the skill sets that you found was unexpectedly transferable, in the sense that in the short time you've been working with us, right? Or you've been doing your own thing, what's kind of a revelation you've had around like, oh, I didn't realize I could use that thing I picked up over here over here.
Yeah, and selfishly, I'm going to say probably one of my strongest suits about problem solving. When people ask me what at the firm I like working on, I always reflect back on a time when I was considered like an expert. I was consulting with teams. They were coming to me with a problem. I was applying the guidance. I was interpreting and suggesting exactly the path they needed to go. So it's just that analytical mindset that we are thrown into using throughout our career, that like I can help people solve problems, and I have great ideas and great perspectives that, to your point, like it doesn't have to be learning tax rules and applying that stuff and filling out returns. It can be having a really cool perspective on an issue that is within a business, because whether it's these multi-billion dollar corporations or these small businesses, it's all the same flavor, right? And I really didn't understand that that was so easily transferable into what I can provide.
Yeah. And even when we had our client calls, you'd be like, wait, that's it. That's all we do. And not in a like diminishing way and not in like the way to minimize it, but like I feel like when you finally sat in on a few of the calls, you were like, wait a minute, you just explained something to her that like you and I both learned, Shan, when we were like 23. And
Yep.
I'm like, uh-huh. Yeah, because people don't learn this shit. And
Well,
that's not like a holier than thou thing. It's a oh, the basics are what work. Like the basics win. They get results.
yeah, absolutely. And these are CEOs, right? These are potentially creative people. These are salespeople, whatever path they took to create their business, right? Most likely they are not accountants, right? So, like, just being able to explain stuff that we see every day and inherently, like, all of us in our network know, like what these KPIs are and what they measure. And like, and we've coached it, right? Like, when the staff start under us, the new class right behind us, we're explaining exactly what these things are. So, the ability to articulate and coach these people on the basics of financial statements and financial measures we've been doing for so long.
Yeah, it just hit me. So if you guys don't know this, when you're in accounting in your big four, you start as a staff one, and then you go to staff two. But staff two is like this middle child sandwich between you should be doing the work of a senior, so you get promoted, and then you have to train the staff one. So like you literally, the ink is still wet on all the work you just did, and you got to train someone how to do what you just did that you just learned how to do. So you
Absolutely.
learn how to do a thing, do it, and then train someone else on how to do it, sometimes in under 1 year's time.
Yep.
So you have to learn rapidly out of survival because it's your job to teach the new kid. So you have to get scrappy. You have to get resourceful and you have to be like, okay, how do I explain this? So this is what I did. This is what, and then you start realizing why you do it that way very quickly. And I just realized like, this is the skill set because we had to train our next level down in year two. And then
Yep.
like, as soon as you learn the thing, you have to train it almost immediately after and
Yep.
pass down the trail there. Just say, hey, here's new knowledge, pass it down, pass it on.
Yep, exactly. And you're reviewing their work product, right? Because the thing is, the accountability is there too,
Yeah.
right? And as a staff two, like, why didn't the staff one do this right? Right. Well, it was your job to coach them. So
Yeah.
you figured
You're
it out.
accountable. You're accountable to their work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't really unpack that before, but yeah, like we are asked to learn, implement, and train at a rapid pace when we
Yep.
were younger. And I think that's also why I can quickly absorb something, sit with it, and then be able to spin it back and teach it, especially using forums like this podcast. Like I'll learn something and go, oh, here's how I would explain it to, my younger self because I had to be able to do that really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting part, I think, too, right, is people learn differently, right? And you learn that within the firm, too, right? That you may explain it that way, but somebody
They
else
don't
may
get
need a
it.
video, right? Like, so it's the business owners are the same way, right? Like each one may learn a little differently. Maybe you have to run through an example. Maybe you have to pull up files, or maybe you have to explain it in one of Shannon's brilliant metaphors, right? So I think there's different ways to explain to different people, but it's that skill set of being able to do that on the fly.
Yeah, I think that's really where it comes out. And that's why certain people who really absorb that skill come out better for it and able to actually teach, especially people like us who actually wanted to be teachers and started to really hone that craft. I love that we discovered each other's existence because I was like, I don't think there's another person out there like me. I'm looking for a friggin' unicorn. Who I said, who I'm looking for, if I had to put like a job description out, guys, it would be like, I need somebody with a sense of humor, doesn't mind the occasional swearing, more than occasional, does and gets it, knows how to talk to people, is like human first, right? Focused, people impact focused, but also comes out with a really good technical education and expertise in this area. And people were kind of like do you want like a people person or do you want like an expert? Because I don't think you can have both of those things. And I was like, she's got to be out there. She's got to be out there.
Knocking on your door.
I know. And also I have to give credit to Mike King, who created a fantastic community of great humans who, if I was going to find somebody, it was going to be somehow through his network. And I'm really grateful that he did everything he did because this is how you kind of got started and you kind of really dove in headfirst into the fractional CFO space. So did I. I mean, everything we do here is grounded in a lot of what I learned from him. So I'm excited for you to continue that journey with him and eventually say goodbye forever to corporate public accounting and eventually do your own thing on your own terms.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to happen. It's not if, it's when.
Counting the days.
Exactly. You guys are going to see more of Lauren on the show. She's going to come back on. I think I would love to dive deeper into client stories, no names, but talk about like struggles that our clients are coming up with, how Lauren and I are problem solving, the things that we're looking at in the numbers, and kind of peel back the curtain on how we see the world and how we're able to see the blind spots of business owners and actually cover those. So look forward to more episodes with Lauren in the future. Lauren, thanks for joining me today.
Shannon, such an honor.
If you're an entrepreneur who's just starting out, it can be overwhelming to think about all the responsibilities you have when it comes to financial management and taxes. Even if you've been binging this podcast, implementing all of it can be really stressful if you don't have a clear list of action steps and know exactly what you should be doing right now. Luckily, we organized all of this for you in the Business Financial Quick Starter. This is your one-stop shop for beginning steps of entrepreneurship so you can build your business confidently from day one. This is not me teaching accounting, no way. It's a specific set of essential action steps to save you a lot of time, money, and headaches as you embark on your own entrepreneurship journey. We cover everything from setting up your business bank account all the way through avoiding a surprise tax bill. Now, as a podcast listener, you get 10% off with code KEEPWHATYOUEARN, all one word. So dive in now and access your Business Financial Quick Starter. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.